Okay, you are good to go.
Yay. Well, good morning, everybody. Rich Calzada here. I am out of the Round Rock office, Williamson County. If you have any questions afterwards regarding this class or anything like that, feel free to give me a holler. Uh, Although I'm sure because this is such a, because I think and I believe that this is such an awesome brokerage, there isn't anybody you can't turn to right next to you in your own office that you can't ask the same questions. But I'm here if you ever need to. Okay, so we're going to talk about the exclusive right to sell, and then the second part will be the seller's disclosure. Um, One of the first things you're going to be doing. I know some of you have already used these forms. Some of you are not new, and so you've already kind of gone into them. But I'll go into them a little bit more. The biggest thing I want to tell y'all is when you use these forms, please read the form. I know when I first started, it was like I knew how to fill in the blanks, I knew what blanks to fill in, but I didn't really read it. And it wasn't until I started getting questions about, well, what's this? What's this? That I thought, yeah, I look like a farmer here. I don't know what I'm asking them to sign, and especially when you get into these engineers and stuff, they want to know everything, every little line, what every little comma and period stand for. So you got to really read these forms, and they're not that tough. But I'll go over this, and I'll kind of give you what I believe are the big points that you want to stress when you're getting this exclusive right to sell. Before you go over to see the client, I mean, you've already got the appointment, and my part here is after you've done all the seller's presentation, and you've walked the house, you already talked, you have already established your rapport, and now it's time that they say, okay, let's go ahead, let's sign me up. All right. So when you bring out this exclusive right to sell, you want to have everything filled out that you can. All right, so that you don't have to search and look to see what the lot, block, and subdivision and these little things are. So fill it out, and where do you get the information to fill it out? All right. If I use two things, I use if this is now if this is a new build, you're not going to use the exclusive right to sell. You're not going to use this. So we're just talking about resale homes, right? So you want to go back and find the last. You want to go back and find the last MLS listing, and you can do that. You just go into Matrix and push and hit sold, and get rid of the parameters of 0 to 90, and put in your address, and it'll give you, if it was sold 4 times, it'll give you all 4. You want the last one. So that's going to give you the basic information. It's going to give you the address. It's going to give you the schools. It's going to give you everything like that you're going to need. If it's not on there, I also use Realist, and I go into the Realist form. And Realist form is probably more important than the MLS listing, because it's going to give you other measurements of the home, and it's also going to give you the owner name, which is huge. Hi, Babs. It's going to give you the owner names, and this is really critical, because you'll have somebody that says, "Hey, I want you to come and list my home." So, all right, and are all the parties going to be there that are involved? They say, "Oh yeah, it's just me. I'm divorced, and my wife doesn't have anything to do with it." Well, if you don't check Realist, if you don't check this, and then you go over to take his word for it, and you just put his name on it without checking, it doesn't make any difference. I had a client that says, no, we're divorced. My wife doesn't have anything to do with it. But in Realist, I find out that her name is on there. So if her name is on there, you want to make sure. He says, oh no, she already said she didn't want anything to do with the house. She didn't want anything to do with that. Well, came time for closing. I'm driving to Rockdale to for the closing, and I get a text. If I have to give her a penny, I'm not signing anything. So immediately you go into panic. You've done all this work. Everything's you found the buyer, and you find out, oh my gosh, now I got to go backwards, and I got to play father confessor. I got to play marriage counselor. I got to play all these different roles to try to save the deal, which I was able to do. But the point is, because I had that, we already knew she was going to sign. And she had agreed to sign right up to the end until she says, well, I want $5,000. And then he didn't like it to. From the MLS that you have. Okay. All right. So let's go to the form itself. Exclusive right to sell. When I already have well, we'll go in there. The seller, you're going to put everybody's name that's on that real list thing. Everybody's name on there. If there's a reason why they shouldn't be on there, you want to know. All right. Why isn't she, she's still on record? And if she's on record, she's got to sign quit claim deed. If he says, no, I have a quit claim deed here, that's not going to do it. Even though it's supposed to be, they're still going to want title, still going to want her to sign off. So this is everybody that's on that list there for seller. The address that you're going to put down on for the seller is not necessarily the address that the home you're selling. If they're an investor, if they just have one rental, you want to put the address where your sellers can be located, where we can mail something to your sellers, not necessarily the house you're listing. If they're living in the house, it's going to be the same. But if they're not living in the house, or if they're moving, and you want to put their new address in there, if there is one. All right. As I go along, if anybody has a question about anything, please just unmute and interrupt me. I don't mind that at all. Okay. Okay. So then you got all that in there. Fax. If they have a fax, go ahead and put it on there. If they have a beeper number, put it on there. But hardly anybody has a fax anymore, so don't worry about that. But you do want their email in there. Okay. And then we get into the broker, all right? And then JBGoodwin Realtors is the broker, right? We all know, or we should know, that this listing is your listing, but who does it really belong to? It belongs to JB, all right? So JB is a broker. He's the one. We are the authorized associate, okay, for it. So this listing belongs to JBGoodwin. So you're going to put JBGoodwin, and then right below that is going to be the broker's associate. That's you. I go ahead and put my name in there and my license number, even though it doesn't have to be a license number. I put that in there anyway. All right. And then the address I use is the address of your office. If you're in the Lakeway office, you put the Lakeway office. You don't need to put the Southwest office where JB is. All right. You put your office. And then your phone number, and then your email, and then the fax the same way. I think we do have a fax. You can ask your office manager what the fax number is. But I never put anything on that for fax. All right, and then here's the big thing here. Seller appoints broker and seller's sole and exclusive agent, and grants the broker the exclusive right to sell the property. I'll notice it shall be in writing and effective when hand delivered. All right. So this is the big thing. This is what this whole thing is about, is that they're giving, by signing this form, they're giving you the exclusive right to sell. They're saying they're not going to go with anybody else. You're the one that's going to sell it. Okay. And we're talking about the property means the land improvements and accessories described below. And we'll get into that in just a bit, but it's going to be the subdivision addition. It's going to be section, phase, okay, and then county, and then it's going to be otherwise known as. And so where do you get the lot and the phase? You're going to get it from Realist or you're going to get it, and you can even get it from the last listing. But that they'll have that on there, so that's where you get that from. I'm going to go over B here, improvements. All right, the real property as opposed to non-realty items, right? So real property, okay, and it's and this is garage. All other fixtures, improvements attached to the above described real property, including without limitations, permanently installed built-in items. All right, what's that mean? Okay, it means any and all fans, mailboxes, television antennas, if there's one there, heating, air conditioning units, security, fire detection equipment. That's the smoke alarms and stuff. All right, wiring, plumbing, lighting fixtures, chandeliers, water softener system, kitchen, garage door opener. All right, the couple critical things in here that come up is the water softener system. You need to know if they have one, first of all, and if they do, you want to find out, is it leased or do they? Because if it's leased, then you've got to make sure that we exclude it, or if they're going to pick it up, if they're going to continue the lease, if they're going to buy it, right? Because if they don't own, if they're leasing that water softener, sell it. So that's got to be excluded. Chandeliers, everybody loves their old chandelier, and they go, that's coming with me. All right, so then you got to exclude that. All right.
Rich,
Yes.
I think the same applies to solar panels on the roof to find out if they're leased or owned, because you don't want to get the house under contract, get the new buyers in the house, find out that there's a lien on the property for the solar panels.
Yes. Solar panels are starting to be a big thing now. It's going to be the same thing as the water softener. It's got to be included on that. Okay, we got to be specific on that. And this is something that's brand new, but it's going to fall under the same kind of deal as it's not owned by them. So they have to let them come to an agreement with the solar panel people to see if they want it, and then you got to figure out what we're going to do with that. Okay. Here's one that doesn't always come up: artificial fireplace logs. All right, if they've got the artificial fireplace logs in there, you know it's got the connection with the gas line. Unless they're going to take it, unless they want to take it, that's got to be excluded. All right. So, and then the other thing is that.
So, Rich,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt you, but on those gas logs they're considered not permanent, even though they're installed.
Yeah. You know what? This is kind of with like the stove. If you have a freestanding range, all right, even though it's not permanently installed, it's still considered a fixture. Still considered part of the real property. Okay. That's what's going on with the fireplace logs as well. It's connected, even though they're not permanently affixed, it's connected to the gas line, and that what this form is saying and what they've decided is that is part of the real property, it's part of the fixture. So like the refrigerator, I don't know if you got the water softener, the refrigerator is still not considered part of it. So it isn't considered part of the accessories, but fireplace logs and the stove are, even though they're not permanently attached. Okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to reflect.
Sure.
So the gas logs, even though they are installed, they can be removed. You have to reserve them.
Yeah. If they're going to take those, it's just like the chandelier. You just tell them, look, if you don't want that, if you want to take that chandelier, we have to either remove it so that it's not on there, or we're going to make sure we put it in here that does not convey. That will
Okay,
with us. Okay.
thank you.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, and then right below that is D, the following improvements and accessories will be retained, and that's where you put all that stuff. I'm gonna take the gas logs, I'm gonna take the water softener, I own it, I'm gonna take it. If I'm gonna take the stove, if that's important, whatever it is that you're not gonna convey that you wanna take with you, all right? The big thing that we're looking at now too because everybody is installing their TVs. They're putting their TVs up on the wall. All right. Oddly enough, the TV is not an accessory, but the bracket is. So you can take it. They can take their TVs with them, but if they're going to take the brackets, you got to exclude it. All right. Biggest thing is, hey, if you're going to take the TV, take the brackets too. All right. So they don't get it, so we don't have any confusion on that. Any questions about things attached or anything like that? All right. I'll give you one exclusion deal that I had. I had a client that they said, okay, the refrigerator is going to convey. We don't need the refrigerator where we're going. We're going to go ahead and convey the refrigerator. So we go through, we finally get an offer, everything goes through, and they come to the walkthrough, and the refrigerator's gone. So naturally, I call up the client. I said, hey, where's the refrigerator? We got to get the refrigerator. He said, oh, no, I already got it out. I got it out. I'm not gonna convey it. I said, well, you got to convey it. It was part of the sale. Well, I'm not going to. And I said, well, and so he wanted $1,000 for the refrigerator, and the refrigerator was old. It was probably worth maybe $500, maybe. But anyway, I said, you got to bring it back. She said, oh, I already sold it. I don't have it. And they said, well, it's going to cost you $500. I'm not paying $500. I don't have the $500. I'm not paying it. I don't care. So what happened, long story short, what happened is that the buyer says, I'm not signing. We're not closing if I don't get a concession for that refrigerator. My seller says, I'm not giving a consideration for the refrigerator. And so I'm sitting here going, I'm going to lose this deal over $500 for a refrigerator. So who ended up paying for it? I gave him the $500 for the refrigerator. All right. Because then it was a matter of, do I lose the whole commission or do I lose $500 of my whole commission? And it was just a matter of financial sense to me. That's the way I did it. But point of the story is make sure your clients know that, hey man, if you say it's conveying, it's got to be here. All right. Any questions about that?
The seller's agent's responsibility to cough up some of that deal.
No, it's not the seller's agent responsibility. It wasn't my responsibility to come up with the $500.
Exactly.
No, it wasn't. So,
Hey, Rich,
yeah,
is the refrigerator on the contract?
the refrigerator was located. Yeah, it was on there as conveying.
And he just changed his mind, huh?
And she did. Yeah, she did. I'll tell you a little bit more about her as we get in a little bit more on here. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't my responsibility. I could have just said, well, sorry. And then I would have lost, do you want to give up a $6,000 or $7,000 commission? Or are you going to be satisfied with $6,500?
Well, at some point, when does the contract not become a contract?
Well, yeah, I know. I'll get into some of that
That's
as we go along. I mean, the whole thing could have blown up. Okay, we could have said, "Oh, you know what? She defaulted on the contract and the whole stuff." But like the bottom line was, man, it's $500.
Yeah. No, I get you. I would do the same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. And so I mean,
And
I had
I'm doing the same thing
I
most
had,
of
I
the
had
time.
another client that I had to put in a new water heater because the water heater was ready to blow when the inspector came in, and this guy was broke. He was tapped out. He didn't have it. With him, I said, "Look, I'm going to put a new water in there." But with him, I was able to put in in the closing that he owed. I think I had a guy that put it in for him. I think I paid $800 for it, and I had a deal in there in closing that he was reimbursing me that $800. So I got back on that one. But you just come up with all kinds of weird stuff that's coming up that you go,
Right.
Yeah.
What was the seller's agent's response to that?
It comes back to a matter of principle. I mean,
No,
what?
Because I believe in helping out your client in all that transaction, but at the same time, it is a contract.
Right.
And so,
Well, and that's the whole thing.
I don't want to get off topic because that's really interesting, but I'd be curious to see what the seller's agent input on that was.
Well, the buyer's agent, and here's the thing: you can either kind of try to call their bluff or not. You know, yeah, you'll come across it with when you do when they do the inspection, they say we want these repairs, and you look at it and you have to say we're going to do this or we're not going to do this. They say, well, we want this done, and you say no, we're not going to do it. So then you have to decide. You know, it's kind of like poker. Is he bluffing, or will he go ahead and pull out of the contract? And it just depends on what you want to do with that. And this is all part of being the seller's agent, is to advise them and let them know, okay, here's what I believe, and here's this, and you got to say, okay, yeah, they want us to do this. They want $1,000 for the roof repair, but there's not $1,000 in there. You want to decide, and you say, well, listen, let's just tell them we're going to give them $100 if that flies. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, I mean, you'll get. I had just a house last month where they looked at the inspection report, and she got scared because inspection reports, and she just dropped out. She just backed out right there.
Hey, Rich.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Newbie question. Can you remind me what the default is for the fridge? And I'm looking through it and I see appliances and so forth, but can you just remind me of the default for it and how yours was listed on the contract roughly?
Sure. When you have non-realty items, okay, non-realty item would be anything that's not attached. So the non-realty item, you're going to have on their refrigerator, and each thing is going to show what they're going to pay for it, right? So if you say, yeah, listen, the shed in the back that's going to convey. I'm going to convey my Rydam lawnmower, and I'm going to convey my refrigerator. And this all goes on non-realty, okay, items. And so those convey. And there's a price that they can say. Sometimes they go, hey, I'm just going to give them to you at no charge. Okay, that means they just convey with the sale. Or you can say, hey, listen, I want $1,000. You can get this, this, and this, and this. And then they'll convey. Okay, and then you do that. So then if they default, if they take their Rydam lawnmower or whatever like that, then they're defaulting on the contract, right? It has to stay there. Is that clear?
Yeah, I think so. So it's non-realty.
Right. So, okay.
So what about above ground pools?
That's going to be the same thing. The above ground pool, you're going to want to go ahead and put that on the non-realty item.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, one more time, solar panels, if they're being leased by the current seller, you would want to put on here that the lease conveys or that the seller's taking them?
Yeah, what you have to do is you have to disclose that it's leased. Okay. And then they can decide if they want to contact whoever they're leasing from to leave that there and take over the lease. Or the company's going to come and get the water softener and they're going to pay for a new one. We got it?
Well, because their solar panels are attached like to the roof, it
Yeah.
would automatically convey. They could still take them. The seller could be like, no, those are my solar panels. I'm taking them to my new house.
Yeah, if they want to.
Okay.
Yeah, everything's going. The whole thing is these items like this. It's all negotiable. It's like, what do you want to do? All right, take this, and then you got the deal where okay, well, you have everything modified for the solar panels. All right, if you take all the solar panels with you, it's got to be converted back to city electric, and so what's that cost, right? So that's the whole thing when you get into the big major lease items like solar panels and things, you're going to have to figure that out, and that's got to be everything's got. There's nothing wrong with doing whichever way you want to do it. You just have to disclose it, right? You just have to say, hey, Barbara, have you had any deals like that where solar panels have been leased?
I have.
Okay.
And it actually, so what usually happens is if the homeowner paid for those in full, solar installer puts a lien on the homeowner. So in our situation, it actually came up in the title search,
Yes.
and the homeowner had to pay that off before we could close.
That's exactly right.
Make a negotiation to either take that at a net proceeds as long as the lien holder was satisfied with whatever it was. But it was new. It was a new experience for me because I didn't my first experience with a house with solar panels on it.
Yeah, very few people have.
Yeah, and once you do something to your roof, it's not something you want to come off and go back on and come off again because you
need a new roof.
Your roof at that point.
Yes,
so it's
right.
Leave it on once it's on. But again, that payment came into play, and it didn't fall on the buyer. The buyer didn't install it. The buyer didn't negotiate the payment plan.
Right. So here's the main thing with that. Big thing with that, Marcy, is like this will be common too if there's a swimming pool, like they just put in a swimming pool and they financed it. Well, that swimming pool, even though they financed it with Cody Pools or whatever, there's going to be a lien on that house. So it's going to be, so if you go to sell it, any liens that are going to be on here, that are going to be on there, have to be satisfied. And it's going to be all come out of the seller's portion. Okay. Swimming pool, and they owe $40,000 in that swimming pool, and that's going to be $30,000 less that they see at the end.
Rich, also on those material men's liens, when they're paid for, the homeowners or the sellers should have a receipt of that release.
Yeah, right. What you're saying is that okay? They've already paid in full, but the lien hasn't been taken off yet.
Yes.
They're going to need a receipt. They're going to need something to show that hey, they have satisfied that lien, and that's something that title's going to have to take care of. They're going to have to say yes, this lien was released, and then there's got to be they're going to have to get from that pool company or from whoever.
Yeah, from the contractor, they should issue back to whoever purchased it a release of lien showing payment in full, and the lien was released.
Right, exactly. But what I'm talking about here is that sometimes they don't release the lien, and so it still shows. So it's going to be up to the seller to get that release of lien
Yes.
done.
Yeah.
Yes. And if the solar panel, there was just a question, if the solar panels are paid for and they're installed, that's attached. So it doesn't even, I mean, it's just part of the accessories. It's part of that. So only if it's leased are you going to have a problem, and only if it's leased, then you're going to have to advise them, and you're going to have to take care of that lease with the new owners. Right. All righty, let's move on. On page 2, it talks about the owners association. You're going to put on there who the owners association is. Listing price, seller instructs broker to market the property at the following listing price. All right. We don't decide how much we're going to list this house for. They have to tell us. All right. And so, like, what I do is you do your comps, you do everything else, and you come up with through your experience what you believe it's going to sell for, and you can say, okay, I believe this your home will sell for anywhere between 200 and 210,000. And I explained to him, if we list it for 200, it's going to go quick. It's going to whatever. At 210, it might take a little bit longer, but here's where we go. And they say, no, I want to list it for 220. And that's 10,000 over your comps, and so then you're faced with the dilemma there. You can advise them, listen, 220. I don't even know it's going to appraise for 220. We can get through the whole thing, and the appraisal comes back, and it didn't appraise. So now we got a problem. We either have to drop our price or ask them to come up to our level. But most of the time, you have to drop your price. So anyway. And kind of what I try to explain to the sellers is, look, do we want to list it or do we want to sell it? Okay, if we want to sell it, we got to make the price realistic. If we just want to list it, we can list it, and then you're going to get all these offers. It's going to be low ball anyway. And so, of course, in this market, you never know what's going to happen and everything like that. But anyway, they tell you whatever. You can't just say, no, we're not going to list it. We're going to list it. They have to agree, right? Okay, so that's kind of what that is. They're the ones telling you, okay, Rich, let's go ahead and list it. You think we can sell it for 205? Let's go ahead and list it for 205. All right, that's what I'll do. You say to list at 205, that's what I'll do, and that's how you do that. All right. And then right below it is a checkoff of what kind of loans they'll accept. Right. If you've got a beat up house that doesn't comply with current codes and has a outdated electrical box and it needs a new roof, and you just want to sell it, and your client just wants to sell it as is, you're not going to take anything but cash or conventional, right? Because if you go with the FHA, if you go with a VA. A lot of these programs, they're not going to lend you money if the house is unsafe. They're not going to lend you money if it needs these major repairs. All right. So they'll decline the loan. So you want to do it that way. But if everything looks good with the house and there's no major issues or anything like that, I tell my clients, what do you care where the money comes from? Why do you care if it's conventional loan, VA loan, or Texas Vet, FHA, as long as you get the money, right? The only difference is when you're dealing with those other ones, there's requirements, and you want to make sure that they can get the loan done in the time you say. All right. If FHA takes them a while, so you might not want to make it a 3-week close, because you know that FHA is going to take a little bit of time. So you want to make sure it's a 30-day close on that. So. But it's just, that's what you're doing there is you're listing, you're telling them what you're figuring out what they're going to go ahead and accept as a type of loan that's going to buy their house. Any questions on that? Okay. And then right below that, it says, notice in big bold letters, broker does not guarantee that the property will be appraised or sold for the listing price, nor does the broker guarantee any net amount that the seller might realize the sale of the property. All right. Going back to that refrigerator client I had, I did a net sheet for her, and it looked like she was going to get about 40 grand back on the net sheet. Okay. It turns out when we get to closing that we closed like a week before it was going to go into foreclosure. She was behind in her taxes. She was behind. She had another lien that she didn't tell me about. So she netted like, I think it was like 12,000. And right there in front of title, she looks at me, she says, Rich, you told me I was going to get a lot more than that. And I said, yeah, Jennifer, but you didn't tell me it was going into foreclosure. You didn't tell me you owed these. And there's another section in here that'll address that too. So this is saying, hey, this is what I believe. It's like that, but I'm not guaranteeing that you're going to get 40,000 back. You're going to walk away with 40,000. I'm not guaranteeing that it's going to sell for 210. I'm saying this is what I believe, and I'm giving you I'm giving you my advice. You said it's going to sell. You said let's try to sell it for 210. All righty. All right, and here's a big thing, term. Listing begins on, and that's going to be the day they sign, okay, and ends 11/59 on, you can put whatever date you want on there, all right? Want to make it 6 months, you put 6 months in there. You know, if you're there January 1st, you can say, hey, July 1st, this is how long the listing is. If you're dealing with, I was dealing with a FSBO, and he had a deal where it was the summertime, and his daughter was real active in with the Texas Soccer Association, and he wanted to get her. He wanted to move back to New Hampshire. So he says, "Listen, I have to leave Texas by, I think it was August 10th, in order to get to New Hampshire and get her enrolled in their soccer thing and their schools. So I've got to close by August 10th." And it was already a short period of time. And I says, well, look, and the way it worked out is that I had like 3 weeks to get a contract signed, executed, and then I had the 30 days to go ahead and close. So I made my listing agreement for 6 weeks. Well, fortunately, it was a nice house, and I listed it, and that first weekend I got an offer that we accepted. So it worked out. So you don't have to have 6 months. You can do a 1-day listing. The first house I ever owned, I went 6 months, nothing happened. I went another 6 months, nothing happened. So I just took it off the market. And then all the realtors started calling me saying, hey, I've got a buyer. Can I list your house? And I tell them, sure, just give me a 1-day listing. Nobody would do it until this one guy says, hey, yeah, I'll give you a 1-day listing. So he came over, signed it for 1 day. Client came over, made the offer, and and it was sold. So you can do a 1-day listing, 1 week listing, whatever it is. You're not buying it. It's just up to you how long you can agree to with your client. All right. Are we cool on that? All right.
What's a default for you guys usually? Is it like do you shoot for 90 days to 6 months?
I kind of go 6 months, and I just say, hey, we're probably not going to do that, but we're going to make it for 6 months just in case. It just depends on what you agree to. I don't go a year out, but I'll go 6 months. So
Can they fire you at any point?
I'm glad you asked that question. And we'll get to that later on, and yeah, you can't get fired anytime. You can't get fired anytime. I've never been fired, but I know it's happened. I know it's happened. So, but anyways, we'll get to that. But I'm glad you asked that. Okay, broker's fee and compensation of other brokers. All right. Fee is when earned and payable. Seller will pay broker the fee of, and that's whatever percentage you want to do. All right. Very common for it to be 6%, but it doesn't have to be 6%. You can do 7%, 8%, 9%. If you're going to go below 6%, you want to go to your broker, go to Buddy or go to Tammy or go to Mark or whoever, and get their blessing on it, right? We're not discount brokers, folks, so we don't want to do it. Now, if you're getting both ends, if you're selling their house and getting commission on the other end, then I think that's okay to say, hey, listen, I'll do my end of your house for 2% because I'm getting 3% on the sale. If you want to do that, I think that's done all the time. And so if it's a neighbor or a relative or something like that, then that's different. But normally, I usually go with 6%. I mean, I'll try to push it for 7 or most of them, unless, I mean, I've never done it for more than 6%. So that's whatever you decide you want to do on that. Just if you're going to go below 6%, if you're going to take less than 3% on your side, discuss it with your supervising broker. Okay. So, hi, Tammy. All right. So we're looking at that. We're looking at the broker's fee. So that's what you decide. That's what goes on. And then you talk about it talks about what you're going to pay the other broker, right? And if the broker represents the buyer, then you put on there whatever that is. So we're going to talk about 6%, and if the broker represents the buyer, you're going to give them 3%. Right? You keep now. There's some agents out there, and you want to look at the MLS, and it'll talk about right in the lower right-hand corner what the buyer's agent gets. Sometimes you'll see 2.5%. Sometimes you'll see 2%. So just be aware of that. I've only done 3% on it because you want them to go ahead. You want the buyers to go ahead and show that house, right? Okay, and then if we're talking about, and this is or the sales price of when you're selling. Sometimes when you're selling a lot, and the lot is only worth $9,000, or the lot's only worth $12,000, and you're going to list it. Well, I mean, you don't want 6%, whatever it is. You can say, okay, listen, I'm going to list this for you, but I'm going to charge you a flat fee of $1,000. All right, because you don't want to do all that work and say and your 6% is only going to be $400 or $500. Okay. You want to go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to list it for you, but I'm going to sell it at $1,000. And then that way you can say, okay, and then you can split it up the way you want. I'm going to go ahead and do it for a flat fee of $2,000. Right. And that's why you have that the buyer add a certain percent or sales price of the sales price or a certain dollar amount. All right. So I did do a sale at for a house that was $40,000, and I think I've had my commission on that was less than one of my leases commissions. So you want to go ahead and decide what you're going to do with that. All right, moving on. Earned. Broker's fee is earned when any of the following occurs during this listing. And that's what we work for free, folks, until we close. All right. And this is saying that we find a buyer that enters in the contract and it's purchased. Okay. And then the seller agrees to sell the house, or the seller breaches the listing agreement. All right. Now you're talking about, okay, say they breach, say they say, hey, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to sell it. I'm breaching the agreement. Well, according to this, you're still due your commission. All right. And we'll get into that a little bit later. So just keep that in the back of your mind there. Okay. I'm going to bring it up right here in a second. Okay. We go to the next page, page 3. It says payable once earned. Broker's fee is payable at the earlier of closing and funding, which is normally what we do. Closing and funding. Seller's refusal to sell the property after the broker's fee has been earned. Seller's breach of the listing agreement or such time as otherwise set forth in this listing agreement. All right. It's not payable if we don't find a buyer. Okay. It's not payable if it doesn't close. All right. And then we can come down and we looked at other fees. And it says seller will pay broker after deducting attorney's fees. So say they breach. All right. So seller will pay broker after deducting attorney's fees and collection expenses, the amount equal to lesser than 1/2 of the amount collected after deductions or amount of broker's fee as described in paragraph 5A. All right. There is a remedy, but I've never had it. I don't know of anybody who has had it. And this is a lot of legal stuff in there. And so, but there is a remedy there. Okay. It talks about service providers. Okay. Broker may receive a fee from a service provider for the referral. All right. So I get calls every so often from AT&T who says, "Hey, I see you have a listing. Oh no, I see you just sold a house, and you're the buyer's rep. Do they have an alarm system? Hey, can you get me an appointment with them? And if they get the alarm, we pay you $250." Right? I never do that. I don't feel clean by doing that. But if you're going to go ahead and receive one, make sure it's disclosed. Make sure you tell the people, hey, listen, I've got somebody here. I mean, if you're interested in that, I got somebody, but just to let you know, I am going to get a referral fee for that. All right. So as long as you disclose it, we're okay with that. All right. Let's go to protection period. Protection period means that time starting the day after the listing ends and continuing for blank days. Sell means transfer property, whether by oral or written option. So that can be as many. Okay, so if, say, okay, you put on there for 10 days, all right, and they come up and they sell it within that 10-day period. And you know that's one of the people that you showed it to that was interested in it, all right? Then you may be eligible for that commission if it says that you're entitled to it if you have to give them a list of people that you say, look, here's a list of people that we're going to buy the house. I got 2 buyers that we're going to buy the house. We're going to negotiate, but decided not to, and the listing ended. So, but here's these 2. And if they buy the house within 10 days or within 30 days, then guess what? You have another broker that came in and they negotiated that deal. Guess what? That's your sale. So you get your commission off that. All right. Are we clear on that? We got that? That's the.
What do you typically put as number of days on there, typically?
Well, it's kind of up to you. You can put 30 days. I've seen 5 days. 10 days, whatever you decide. But it's going to be a deal where you've got somebody that man, I know this person was going to buy it, but we just couldn't agree. So you want to go ahead and put on some kind of a time, 10 days, 15 days, 30 days, so you know that if they do come back. But the big thing there is that it can't just be anybody that you go, oh, you can't find out about it and go, oh, hey, wait, I showed that guy that house 3 weeks ago. You have to give them a list of people. And so if somebody, if you showed somebody in an open house and they looked at it, oh, it's nice, and then they leave, and then listing's over, and then they buy it, you can't go back and say, hey, I showed that house, I get the commission on that. You have to give them a list of people. Look at, here's the people I work. These are the people that I want to be protected if they buy the house. And then they can always wait. If you put down 60 days, you can wait 60 days and then buy it or whatever. But that's the whole thing there. So. All right, let's go on to the next page. Listing services. Broker is a member of Actress, and so there, whatever other boards you are a member of. Okay, I put in member of Actress, and I put in there Williamson County Association of Realtors. So if you're a member of Morty, if you're a member of the Waco board, if you're a member of the Temple board, or whatever other board, Houston board, you're going to put in there who you're a member of. All right. And then and then it explains it. Actress is a multiple listing service for MLS. Okay, and they have and they put out information on your listing, right? So then the A is broker will file this listing with Actress by the earlier of the time required by MLS rules for 5 days after the date of the listing begins. Seller authorizes broker to submit information about this listing on the sale of the property to MLS. All right, that's the one everybody's going to check, right? All right, so. And the reason you want that is because it's going to be, and it's in bold here, any information or data, including all information about the sale, shall become property of ABOR Actress for all purposes. Submission of the information to Actress ensures that the person who use and benefit from Actress also contribute information. So this is saying, hey, I want to put in there all this information. By you telling me this, it's all going in there. It's all going in there. All right. And then the next one is seller instruction broker to use a multiple listing service. Everybody aware of CSS? There's different companies that you can, when you list a house, you can say, hey, appointment with agent, or it's vacant, go, or you have to go with, you go ahead and request an appointment through this listing service. What that does is that you put in there, and then what they do is they check with me or the seller or the tenant, and they say, hey, is this okay? And then if they get approval, then they come back to you and they give you the approval to go ahead and list it. I don't use them. I like to know firsthand, a little bit selfish, but it's good. I mean, if you start getting a lot, this is a great way to if you got a business, this is a great way to relieve some of the administrative minutia that kind of bog you down. Okay, seller instructs broker not to file. Some people just don't want it filed. Some people are. I had a listing in Hutto where the guy didn't want me to put a sign out in front of his house. And I said, well, that's a pretty good marketing tool. We want people, we want exposure. That's the way we're going to sell your house, by the most exposure. He says, yeah, but I got a bunch of nosy neighbors, and I don't want them to know I'm selling. And so I said, all right. And I says, but it's okay to put it in MLS. He says, yeah, I wanted to go in MLS. I said, all right. So we're going to put it in MLS. You know, they're going to put it out on Zillow. He said, yeah, that's fine. I just don't want my neighbors to know. Well, okay, that's fine. I won't put your sign up, because he was real adamant about that. But really, I mean, you think the neighbor's not going to know that he's selling the house? Because everybody, they go in to see what's going on in their neighborhood, and they go into Zillow to see what their house is worth, so people find out. But if they don't want the sign on there, all right, we won't put a sign on there, okay? So they can decide, hey, don't put it in MLS, all right? Then just explain to them, look, the only way we're going to sell this house is through exposure. And if you're going to cut me down on the maximum exposure, I want you to know that it's going to be, it's going to be tougher to sell it, because we're not reaching out to the people who can buy it. All right.
Hey, Rich, have you ever not taken a listing because of things like this?
I've only not taken I think 2 listings, and one of them was because I could tell. I mean, I didn't like the guy. I don't think he liked me, and I could tell that now he may not have hired me at the end of it, but I just I knew it was going to be ugly. So I didn't take a list. I said, you know what? I don't think I'm the right guy for you. So you can do that.
But not about this kind of stuff.
Yeah. And the discount thing is the other thing too, is that I had somebody say, yeah, well, I want you to cut. No, investors are horrible like that. Is that he says, I showed him a house in here in Round Rock. And he says, yes, he's an investor. He buys all these houses. Oh, great. Yeah, I want you to do this for me. Yeah, okay. And he says, but hey, listen, I want you to cut your commission to 2%. I said, no, I don't do that. He says, well, I want you, if you give me this at 2%, I'll give you all the other ones. I'll give you my other ones. When I says, no, I'll tell you what, you give me this one at 3%, and then we'll talk about reducing it once I know you're going to, you know, if you're going to give me 10 other houses, then I'll consider going to 2%. But I'm not giving you 2% now, and then you find somebody else who'll do it for 2%, because they just shop. Investors will shop until they find somebody that's gonna lower the price. Okay. So yeah, so that's a couple of things. If they're unrealistic, if you know the house it will sell at 210 and that only at 210, and they want 260. And you can say, hey, listen, I don't want to list the house. I'll be glad. Don't feel bad about saying, no, I'm not going to go ahead and list it. I'm not going to go ahead and I'm going to, I'm not your guy. I'm not your guy. So you want to, because you want a reputation, you want referrals, and you don't want anybody you don't want to have a listing where you go, well, he's had it 6 months and he couldn't sell it. Well, I couldn't sell it. Nobody says, why couldn't you sell it? It doesn't look bad on the seller. You can say, hey, well, they wanted too much. You want to be able to show that, hey, I can sell a house. I can sell it in 30 days. That's the best. What's nice now is that there's so many houses that because the inventory is so low, you can say, hey, I sold the house in a week. I sold the house 2 days after I listed it. That's really nice. That looks good, even though, it may not have anything to do with your sales skills. It's just where the market is. All right, let's see here. Okay. All right, let's go down to listing content. This is going back to the thing. Listing content. Everything we do as far as on this thing here, in A, it says listing content means all photographs, images, graphics, video, recordings, virtual tours, drawings, written description, remarks, all this stuff, and other copyrightable elements relating to the property, okay? This is saying this is your stuff, all right? So you pay for virtuals to come in and take the pictures and stuff, and we'll say on the lease, you pay for merchants to come and they take the pictures and then then you go ahead and it leases. Okay, great. And then a year later they pick another agent, and then you'll get a call saying, "Hey, can I use your photos?" They have to ask you. You can't use somebody else's photos when you go to list it. You can go and look at the old listing and say, "Man, these are great photos. I can save some money if I can use those." I don't usually, unless they're a rare circumstance, I don't let anybody use what I paid for. Okay, so if you have aerials and you pay for aerials and stuff, and say you lose the listing or it backs out and they take it off the market, then they list with somebody else. There's no problem with saying, if somebody calls you, say, "Can I use your aerials and your photos?" Yeah, it cost me $500. Go ahead and pay me $500, and you can go ahead and do it. You can go ahead and use mine. But I don't necessarily say they are unless I have a good relationship, with the other agent. Maybe I might do something like that or whatever. Okay.
I think also
Yes.
the photography company that took the photos, you also need to check with them because they own the copyrights of those photos. Just because
Yes.
you them doesn't mean you actually own those photos full and clear as well. So
Right.
you have to check with the company that you used and you purchased them to make sure that you
Yeah,
can't
if you're going to use somebody else's photos,
resell those photos. Like I use Virgin, I use Voco Media, with tours, and I've had an agent that actually hijacked my photos, or I sold a property and then he bought the property as an investment, and he wanted to use my photos to promote his lease listing. And no, pay for those photos. He went ahead and used them. Hey man, if you're gonna use them, you've got to pay me something. I don't care if it's $100 or whatever, because he used two of those. But those aren't mine. You just want to make sure that you have full clearance to even allow somebody else to use your photos.
There you go. Yeah. All right. Then he says, "Hey, remove those photos from MLS before you close out the listing." That's one way to prevent that, right? Okay. All right. Next page, page 5. Authorizing access. Authorizing access to property means giving permission to another person to enter the property. One is at reasonable times. Authorize other brokers and their associates to access the property at reasonable times. Duplicate keys, facilitate convenient and efficient showings of the property. I just had this come up because I had a listing where the husband was 83 years old and his health was failing, and it's COVID right now, right? And his house was kind of failing, and the wife was doing it all by herself, and they had 30 years of stuff in this house. I mean, oh my gosh. And so everything, and she was still trying to work, and everything was inconvenient for him. And so when it came time for a showing, even if she wasn't home, I'd have to go in there and get their 3 big, huge dogs and get them outside and put them in a kennel that they had outside. And then, I mean, it was a real hassle showing. But anyway, when we got under contract, then they said, "Hey, listen, we'd like to come back in and take some measurements for our furniture. And we're going to want to replace the floor and stuff. So we want to come in with that." He said, "Nope, absolutely not." And I says, "Well, all right, but listen, we have to give them, you have to give them reasonable access to it, right?" When it said, "Well, they can do it the day before," and it's like everything was just a hassle. Everything was just a hassle with them. So you have to say, okay, what's reasonable? And it's going to depend what's reasonable, but you have to give people reasonable access to that house if they, especially during the option period, and And if they want to come in, if they need to fix something in agreement with the inspection that has to be fixed before, you got to give people reasonable access to that house. Right? And they have to agree to have a key box, the C. You have to agree to have, for the Supra or a combo lock, whichever way you want to do it. If they don't agree to it, you can't put that on there. So, I mean, with that house, there was no key. There's no key box. It was, they had to have an appointment, and we had to be sure that, that I had to be there, because we didn't want anybody just showing up and using that key and gaining access. The guy was real fragile, had COPD, so we had to make sure he got out. Had to make sure everybody had the mask on and gloves. They didn't touch anything, and go through that way. So, it's possible they're going to say, "Hey, no, we don't want to give you a key." That means you got to do more work. You got to be there every showing. All right. So there's the questions for that. And then D, photos are or are not authorized to put photos in the MLS system. They can decline to have the stuff put in the internet. And that's just the rest of that section is saying what they are authorizing you to do. Okay. All right. Agency relationships. Page 6. All right. First thing on there is that they have to receive the IABS. All right. So that's going to be your first thing anyway, right? So that's usually no problem, but there it is right there saying you have to have that. And then that the broker will exclusively represent the seller in all negotiations for the property. All right. And we talk about intermediate relationships. All right. So they have to agree that if I have a listing and Marcy has a buyer, and Marcy comes in and says, "Hey, listen, Rich, I got a buyer. We want to submit a contract." Then they have to agree to let Marcy act as an intermediary, because she's with the same brokerage. All right. So usually not a problem. I've never had a problem with it. But there's restrictions on that. And then bold shows what the restrictions are. All right. With the intermediary, I'm not allowed to disclose to Marcy that, "Hey, my buyer, I know we have it listed for 210. I'm telling you right now, my buyer will accept 205. Can't do that. Can't do that. All right. We can't tell them anything like that. We can't disclose that the buyer, okay, Marcy can't disclose that her client will pay $215 for the house. So I can't tell her he'll take less. She can't tell me he'll pay more. All right. It goes both ways. We can't disclose confidential information about the seller or the buyer. All right. So I can't tell her, "Hey, listen, these guys want to get out because the wife has cancer and they want to move out." All right. I can't, it's confidential information. If it's a divorce case, I can't tell them, "Hey, we got to sell this because it's part of a divorce." Okay. Everything they tell us is confidential. We cannot release any of that information. All right. All right. So that's where I'll leave that for right now. All right.
So Rich,
yes.
I know you're kind of talking to us about to explain all this, but in a listing meeting that you're having to get that client to sign, how much detail would you give them about the intermediary relationship? Would you just kind of just generalize it in a statement or two? And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just say, "Hey, listen, this is an intermediary. So I work for this broker, and we just want you to know that if another agent from our brokerage wants to buy it, we both have allegiance to JBGoodwin, but so to be upfront with you, you have to agree that another agent from brokerage, it's still the same thing. There's no difference as far as information flow goes between me and Marcy, or me and Joe Smith with Remax. So I don't go into a whole bunch of stuff. I just let them know, and they're usually good with it. They don't care who represents the seller. Yeah, as long as they feel they're still getting the same representation stuff.
Okay.
And Elizabeth asked, once the offer has been accepted, is this amount still confidential? The amount that we sell for is confidential until it closes. All right. And you don't want to let anybody know, like say if I had a house that we had an offer of 186, and it fell through. Well, you don't want to let anybody know you had an offer of 186 that they accepted, because we ended up selling it for 196 to the next buyer. So if we had let them know that they had already accepted 186, they're not going to offer us 196, right? So you want to keep it confidential. The only time you can disclose what it was sold for was after it closes. Then you can disclose what it sells for the purpose of marketing to another client. All right. So, right. So if I go over to the neighbor, calls me, says, hey, listen, I want you to list my house, and they have less of a house than you just sold. And they say, hey, we want to list it for the same amount. What did they sell it for? You say, well, they sold it at 196, but you don't have the same house. So you can't ask 196 for it, or you shouldn't ask 196 for it, because the market won't allow that. So that's the only time you can tell people about what it is. You don't want to tell anybody what offer was accepted until it closes. Once it closes, you can tell somebody, what it closed at. In fact, I put out flyers. I put every closing I get, I put out a postcard to everybody in that subdivision. I say, hey, look what we just sold here. Let me sell your house, kind of thing. All right. And then they can decline the relationship, the intermediary relationship. Number 9 says confidential information during the listing or after it ends. Broker may not knowingly disclose information. So even if we know we got this confidential information, the listing ends, we didn't sell it, you still can't tell people, hey, listen, I know, or I can't tell people. I mean, once you know that information, that's a bond that you can't break, because they can. That's a big no-no. All right. Okay, broker's authority, and this is what you're telling them what you're going to do. This is what you're authorized to do, and it gives you all the stuff. You can accept option money and forward it to the seller. You can disseminate information about the property. You can put it online. You can put a for sale sign. This is all the things that we can do, that we'll do. All right. More importantly, number 11, seller's representation, warranties and agreements. Except as provided below, seller's representation and warrants to the broker that the seller has a fee simple title. All right. Seller is not a party to any lawsuits, not a party to foreclosure. They don't have any other liens on the property stuff. And this is so that you can do it. It's like I said about that refrigerator lady. When we got the closing, you said you were going to get, you said I was going to get more. Well, this is specifically saying, hey, you weren't honest with me. You didn't tell me you had all these things. So how can I I can't honestly give you information based on facts that aren't correct. All right. So, let's see here.
Hey, I've got Rich,
Yeah.
sorry to bother you again, but I've got one that just jumped out at me. This states that the seller represents that any pool, spa, and required enclosures, fences, gates, and latches comply with applicable laws and ordinances. If you've got a survey that doesn't show an above ground pool, and it appears to you that it might be within an easement, you're gonna probably suggest that the seller might want to go ahead and get a new survey. But when they sign this, are basically saying, no, it's fine.
Well, easements is another thing, and then the pool, the above ground pool, it has to be established whether that is a permanent fixture, whether that is a permanent fixture or not. And either way, if it encroaches on the easement, then now if it's not a permanent fixture, you don't have to worry about the survey, but it's still going to affect the easement, and the easement has to be, and that's what the survey is about. Easement has to be disclosed. So yeah, I would say, hey, listen, you put this on the easement, it can't go there. It can't go there. It would just be a lot cleaner to go ahead and have them move it. But some of these pools are huge.
Well, this one's huge. This is probably 20-foot diameter pool, 4 foot tall, and it's a significant expense to move it.
Well, probably it'll come up that it will have to be removed from the easement in order to clear title.
But if they've already signed this agreement, let's say, have they stated that the pool is not, it's in there, it complies with all ordinances that includes the easement.
Yeah. Well, and here's the beauty of this, and we'll get into that just in a second. I'm going to answer that question on the next page.
Okay.
Hey, they're also saying that the seller, that there are no delinquency or defaults under the trust deed. Okay, and then there's a number 9, and very few people. I mean, this is real easy to miss. It says number 9: seller learned of broker's firm by. Right, and if that's not filled out, I mean, hey, how'd you hear about us? How'd you hear about me? Oh, well, personal referral. Then you put personal referral on there. Okay, or I saw a sign, or I saw a television ad, or whatever. Go ahead. You want to go ahead and fill that out. And then we go to the seller agrees to, and that's all the things that we've talked about that the seller is going to agree to do. Give us access, provide the broker with copies of any leases or rental agreements pertaining to the property. If they sell the property and it's a rental, the leases go with it. You can't break the lease to the new owner. They've got to honor those leases. All right. Limitation liability. Broker is not responsible or liable for in any manner for personal injury not caused by the broker's gross negligence. All right. So, I mean, if you take somebody in there and you trip them, they hit their head on the sink, and okay, that's your gross negligence. We're liable for that. But if we walk through there and the chandelier falls on the client's head, that's not through our fault. We're not liable for that. And so that's what that's saying. B, broker is not responsible for the security of property or inspecting the property on any periodic basis. All right. These things are is what you want to explain to them. You want to let them know, hey, listen, we don't leave jewelry out, don't leave money out, because we're not responsible for it. And I mean, I can't vouch for other agents, and so don't leave that stuff out. If it's missing, hey, it's not my fault. Right? And then here's the other one: arise from the seller's failure to disclose any material or relevant information about the property. All right. So if they don't tell us about something, it's not our fault. Okay. If they don't tell us that, hey, there was a death there, it's not our fault. All right. So so this is the big thing there. You don't want somebody coming back, hey, you didn't tell me that that the foundation was bad. You knew the foundation was bad and the inspector missed it. They can't come back and get us because they say, hey, I didn't know. They knew, I didn't know. All right. And then default, if the seller breaches the listing, the seller is in default, will be liable to the broker for the amount of the broker's fee specified in paragraph A. I don't know of anybody that goes after these people if they breach the listing agreement. All right. So I mean, we're not in the business of going after people. If they want to break the lease, they can go ahead and do that. And then I'll get to that in a bit. But we don't. I've never seen it. I don't know if anybody else has ever gone over and tried to go after somebody for stuff because they breached the listing agreement. I mean, I don't know. I mean, one of my favorite shows is $1 Million Listings. I mean, I find it very entertaining, and a lot of this stuff conveys a lot of stuff. I mean, it's like I've used that line, or I do that, or I do that. But there's some cases where they spend all this money under the listing agreement, and then they breach the listing agreement. You never see them going after them in court for the $20,000 party that they threw there or whatever, right? So I don't know of anybody that, and any of us that's ever done that. I've never thrown a party at any of my listings anyway. So anyway, page 9, mediation. It says, hey man, if they think we did them wrong, we got to go to mediation first. Attorney's fees. Hey, the winner, we go to mediation. If that doesn't good, if that's not right, they're not happy with that, they can sue us. If they sue us, loser pays the attorneys. All right, and that's what goes on with that. That's pretty much standard everywhere. Number 17, seller's disclosure notice. It says that we give them the seller's disclosure notice, and they have to be honest on that. Okay, so number 18, addenda and other documents. I'm going to try to get through this real quick and then go over the disclosure. Then another documents. That's just stuff that we're gonna include. We're gonna give them. Okay. We're gonna give them the seller's disclosure notice. We're gonna give do the if there's a condo addendum. If there's a key box authorization by tenant, we're gonna give them all these forms. Okay. Here's additional notices, and this talks about the broker's fees. We talked about that, about 6% or whatever. It says broker's fees between the brokers are not fixed, controlled, recommended, suggested by a board. So it just says, hey, there is no such thing as, well, this is what we recommend. We recommend 6%. Nobody recommends it. Nobody says that. It's just kind of the industry standard is what we do. And then broker advises a seller to consult an attorney before using any type of surveillance device in the property to record or otherwise monitor prospective buyers. I just closed on a deal. They're both of them, husband and wife, are IT geeks. I shouldn't say geeks, IT people. And they had cameras and everywhere. I mean, every room had a camera. And I says, okay, you can't record anything now, right? When we're doing the open houses or we're doing, because you can't do that unless they know they're being recorded. And so we had a showing, and I was talking to them, and I said something about giving them some feedback about what they said. They said, oh yeah, we heard them say that. I says, how'd you hear that? I went, no, don't. I says, listen, you can't. I just stopped. I said, you can't record. You can't record unless they know. So anyway, so that's, make sure you let them know. No recordings. No recordings. Okay.
Hey, Rich.
Yes.
One thing, I was hoping to back up just for a quick second on the seller's disclosure. I'm a little, I'd like to know from you what's typical as far as, I mean, 9 out of 10 times you have all of the seller's disclosure and stuff ready before you list it, or the timing of the seller's disclosure, I'm a little unclear about.
The seller's disclosure, I give them after they sign the listing agreement. I tell them I'll pick it up in 3 days. Go ahead and fill it out. I don't fill out any of it. And after we're done with this part, I'm going to go into that, and that'll clear up your questions about.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, the bottom line, bottom portion here, J, if the seller is a foreign person as defined by federal law. All right, so if you've got a client who's Canadian, doesn't live here, but this is an investment home, and he wants you to sell the investment home. You got to let him know that because he's a foreign person, Uncle Sam's going to get his chunk of taxes out of it. They don't wait for him to go and invest in something else or buy something else. Like if we go ahead and if my client sells his house, they don't worry about capital gains or anything like that. Well, if you're a foreign person, they do, and they'll take the and they'll take the taxes out. You just got to let them know that's what that is. Okay, then the last page of this is K. Broker cannot give legal advice. And in big bold, read this listing agreement carefully. If you do not understand it, or you have questions regarding the legal effect of this listing, please consult an attorney. And that's the whole thing with everything we have. Just say, hey, listen. It's like when you buy a car and they come out with that big long page of stuff, and it's got all these little things like that, and then they tell you. Then the last line is, if you don't understand this, consult an attorney before signing. I want that car. You sign it. Nobody reads it. But anyway, that's the same thing we're saying. Hey, man, if you have a problem, if you have any questions, and especially if it's legal, I can give you legal advice. All right. They say, hey, well, if they're asking questions about, what about tax ramifications? What about if I sell this like that? You got to let them know, hey, man, I'm not an accountant. I'm not a CPA. You got to check with them. I don't know. You can give them, you can tell them you can give them information that is not legal, but when it comes to that, you can't give it. So make sure we don't overstep our bounds. All right. Any questions on the seller's disclosure? I mean, on the right to sell. Okay, let's go over to the ABOR's seller disclosure notice. The only thing I might fill out is the first line concerning the property at, and it's going to be the common address. All right. So everybody is required every seller is required to fill this out. Okay. Doesn't make any difference if they live there, if they didn't live there, if they used to live there, if they never lived there. We need something. It's required for a seller's disclosure. First part is seller is or is not occupying the property. They check which one it is. If unoccupied, how long since the seller has occupied it, and the seller is or is not knowledgeable of the current conditions. The property is or is not leased. That's self-explanatory. During the last year, property has not been vacant. If yes, how long it's been vacant. So if they don't know anything about the property, they say, I don't know. I've always just rented it, so I don't know what it is. Well, they don't have to fill out the rest of it. But they have to fill out that they don't know. All right. So even though they say I had an agent saying, hey, they're exempt, they don't have to do it. No, that's not the case. They still have to, but they have to fill it out that, hey, I don't know. All right. Okay. Features and equipment. This first part is pretty self-explanatory. It says, do they have it? Do they not have it? Do they have it and it's working? Do they not have it and it's working? Or I don't know if it's working or not. Okay.
There are exceptions to filling out the seller's disclosure, though, and that is an estate. If the executor to the estate has never lived in the home, they don't have to fill that out. If it's
Right.
a family,
Right.
they don't fill it out. So I think there's 3 exceptions of having to complete a seller's disclosure. And if they don't fall into they have to fill it out with their knowledge.
Right. And you need something from them that says, hey, I don't know.
Right. Like I have a client that is in a house in Georgetown, but they live in Oregon right now. They only lived in the house 1 year and then leased it out the last years. Now it's up for sale. And he was asking me about the house, and I'm like, you have to fill it out to the best of your knowledge. What do you remember about it? Because you're going to put that date the last time you lived in the house, and so that's going to balance it out, I guess.
Well, that's the purpose of these first questions. It's saying, hey, have you ever occupied it, or how long has it been since you occupied it? And it's like, hey, I don't know what the condition is. I don't know what the condition is. So we need to know. I mean, we either get it filled out, or we have to have something that says, hey, I don't know. I've never lived there. And that would be the same thing with an estate, or if it was willed to you, if it was a gift, and now you're selling it. We need to know. We still need to know. Okay, if you don't know anything about it, that's what we want to know.
Right, that's an exception. You're exempt from having to fill that out, though.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay. I guess my speakers are giving some feedback here. Better? All right. All right, well, let's move on here. So anyway, the bathroom heater, a lot of them don't have bathroom heaters, but whatever they do have on the right side, additional information, it's asking, okay, if there is a bathroom heater, is it electric or is it gas? Is there a carport? How many spaces? Is it attached? Central heating, electrical, gas? Is it the dryer hookups, electrical dash, 110, 220, all these things. So it's all the yes or no questions. Okay. So let's go to page 3. And it says explain all, no, and attach additional sheets. If they're asked, anything like that, anything that needs an explanation, be sure to put it in there. The seller excludes the following items from the sale. Put in there. They exclude the refrigerator. They exclude whatever it is. Again, okay. Utility providers and homeowners association. Have them answer that because that's critical. Especially if they're putting on there that it's city water and they don't list that it's a mud, then you want to be absolved. They're telling you what it is. They're telling you what it is. Whatever they say on here, and this is why you don't fill it out. You don't advise them how to fill it out. You say, here it is. Okay, because all you have to do is just say, yeah, you don't need to put that. Just put no. And that's an issue. Then you don't want to be put in the middle of misrepresentation of the house. This is what they are telling you is going on with the house. Okay. Property defects and malfunctions. Are you aware of any of the known defects or malfunctions? Okay. And if you have like a retaining wall or the roof, here it is on the right side here, roof overlay shingles or roof approximate age and roof type. Okay. That's pretty important. Go ahead and put all that in there. Make sure they answer that to the best of their ability, because first thing you do when they come in there, when they ask you, how old is the roof? How old is the HVAC? This way it's already on there. They already know. Okay. And so we go with that. The answer to any below that, if any answer to any of the questions, number 3 is yes. Explain additional and attach additional sheets. Okay, if there's any malfunctions, you got to put that and describe other property defects and malfunctions. The reason they put that in there is because they don't want anybody to say, well, you didn't ask me that, because it's not covered on here. If they have something that's not covered on there, that's why they put that on there. All right. There's a section here that says, have you ever, well, I'll wait and get to that. Okay, so let's go on to the next page. Current conditions: wood destroying insects, active termites, terminal wood rot needing repair, and then termite treatment. If you don't know, the last time there was a termite treatment on the property, you can find out if, and they'll usually have that sticker in the cabinet below the sink. You open it up, in there somewhere, there's usually a post, and it's just a piece of paper that's probably stapled on there, and it'll have the company that treated the house, and when it was treated. If they don't remember when, it's under there. If they don't, so that's where you're going to find that information. Structural roof repair. Even if they just patched a certain area or whatever, and you don't really consider it like a major thing, got to put it on there, because when the inspector comes over there, he's going to see a little patch. This house I had, they had, well, first of all, there's a section here that says, have you ever claimed anything on insurance? And if you did, what was it for? And she says, yes, I claimed something on insurance, but she didn't say it was to repair the roof. She had in there that the roof was repaired 3 years ago, that a new roof was put on 3 years ago. And she had on there that there was a claim on the insurance, but she didn't link the two. So all we kept getting was, what was the claim that she made? So make sure it's all attached. Yeah, and that's why they have a new roof. It was 3 years. But after they put the new roof in, they had it inspected again a little bit later, and she had dormers coming out of the roof. And there was a section of the dormers that wasn't sealed right by the people who redid the roof. So they came in and they patched it and they fixed it up. And so what they were saying is that that's two separate incidents, that the roof was bad. And it was like, no, it was just not installed correctly. So that was corrected. The install was corrected. So she didn't put on there, she considered it one repair to the roof, new roof. But they had it fell out of contract, because the guy said, well, if she lied about that patch, who knows what else she's lying about? Well, she didn't lie about the patch. It just corrected what the roofing company didn't do right. So any little thing that, no matter what, throw in here, because when they find something and it's not in here, they're going to go, they're lying. And what happens when you find one little thing, you start looking for other little things, right? And so it just complicates matters. Okay, previous condition of the property: previous flooding into the structure, previous flooding onto the property, fires, foundation repairs, roof repairs, termites and stuff like that. And this is the other thing: if somebody's toilet overflows and it gets on and it gets on it wasn't a big deal, but the water hit the wood, right? The 2x4, the framing or something like that. If they don't consider it a flood, I don't consider it a flood. It just overflowed. It wasn't a flood, it overflowed. Well, then the inspector comes in and he sees, there's water damage here. Previous evidence of previous water damage. And they consider that, hey, what happened? Was that a flood or you know, the toilet flooded over? Flooded over. So make sure that, I mean, if it ever was, throw in there, hey, the toilet overflowed. I had that where a client, the toilet overflowed 3 different times. And I says, what was that? And they said, was it bad time? He says, no, my kids, they kept throwing teddy bears into the toilet and flooding it and stuff. So, so it's like, hey, this is what happened. Everything was repaired, everything was treated, no problems anymore. So anything like that, if the toilet overflowed, it's flood. It's considered flooding, even though it wasn't. All right. All right, and then are you aware of any of the following conditions? Present flood insurance, previous flooding due to a breach of reservoir, all these little things there. I mean, just have them fill it out. And then it asks about, are you in a floodplain? Okay. Don't tell them, yes, you're in a floodplain. No, you're not in a floodplain. You know, refer them to FEMA's. FEMA has a website. They can find their property and find out what they are. And they're going to ask you, well, what's this mean? And you can just refer to this right below it. It says, okay, look, on here are all the definitions of what the floodplains are. Okay. And that's the biggest thing that's changed in the last few years is that part there. Everybody wants to know that. Everybody knows that. I mean, because my house here is not in a floodplain, but Memorial Day, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I had 3 feet of water in my backyard. Fortunately, it didn't hit the house because of my grading, but it flooded. So you just got to disclose something like that. That hey, it never reached the house, but even though you know there's parts of Austin, parts of Houston where hey, they're in a 500-year floodplain, which means once every 500 years you're going to flood, but they flooded 3 times in 1 year, so you never know. All right, page 6. Have you ever received assistance from FEMA or U.S. Small Business Administration for flood damage to the property? And yes or no. I used to live in California, and during the big earthquake in Northridge earthquake, my chimney, it was a 2-story and had a brick chimney, and it pulled away from the house and twisted. Anyway, FEMA gave me, I forget how much, 14 grand or something to fix it. And they fixed it, and there's no problem. But when there's a claim like that, it's recorded. So make sure that they do that. And if they say, yes, there was, explain what was repaired. What did they use that money for? And I ask, hey, did you ever receive money based on a claim that you didn't repair? Right? Everybody knows if you got a clunker of an automobile and somebody backs into you or whatever, and you get that $1,000 insurance payoff, you think, well, I'm not really going to fix it. I'll just keep the grand. That's what they're talking about. Did you ever not fix something because then you got the money for? Miscellaneous. Are you aware of any of the following? All right, room additions, common area, pools, other areas, undivided interest with others would be more of a condo kind of thing or HOA kind of thing. Any lawsuits or other legal proceedings directly affecting the property. If there's a big class action suit because so many houses had foundation issues with D.R. Horton or KB. If you know there's there's a big lawsuit going on that your house is included in, you got to let them know, hey, this is going on, this is going on. Okay, if you were built on a landfill, read each one of these so that you know what's going on. Okay, next page. Ad valorem taxes. Check any tax exemption which you are currently claimed for the property. This is important because when you go ahead and you list what they paid for taxes last year on the MLS when you're entering in that, and it shows that your estimated taxes are $5,000 for the year. And then what they're claiming is, then you have to put on there what exemptions do they have? They have the homestead, they have the over 65, they have the disabled veteran. These things make a difference because it's a reduction in the taxes. So if somebody comes along and they don't have any of that, then they're going to know that their taxes are going to be higher, right? Because they don't have those exemptions. So when they file it, they're going to say, hey, it showed here that their taxes are only $5,000 and now I got to pay $7,000. Well, yeah, because you don't have these exemptions. That's why it's important to know what exemptions they have on that. And that's what that's asking for. Inspections and disclosures. Have you ever received a written inspection reports from persons who regularly provide inspections, either licensed inspection? Okay, so I have this listing and the first buyer comes in and they do an inspection and we get a copy of the inspection and stuff. So, and they say, hey, there's just so much, I don't want to mess with it. And that first contract fell out. So then the next person comes in and now I put it on there. Now we put an addendum to that saying, hey, it was inspected. And now I'm offering the inspection and this is because I'm offering the inspection to the new buyer because it's saying, here it is. And you can either take this and use this, or you can have your own, whatever. But this is kind of a thing where it helps you because now they know what's going on. So you don't have to worry about, oh man, what are they going to do with the inspection? They already know what's going on with the inspection. So I had that done and they still had their own inspector come in and do it. I don't know why, but they did.
Rich, this is Ann. I have a question regarding this. If you do have the inspection, the buyer pays for it, that seller doesn't automatically get a copy, does it? Does the buyer pay for it?
No, you're right. I'm sorry. You're right. What I did is when the first people had the inspection, I asked them, hey, can I get a copy of that? And they said, yeah. And they gave us a copy of the inspection report. The interesting thing about that, they did the inspection and then they did a scope of the plumbing, not hydrostatic, just a scope where they send the camera down. They gave us the inspection report, but they wouldn't give us the scope. I don't know why, but anyways, so yeah, they have to agree to give it to you. And they don't have to agree to give it to you because they paid for it, but they're good enough to give it to me so that I can say, okay, great. So then I put that in the MLS as part of the documents. It had that inspection report. By the way, that inspection report was done by super inspectors, if anybody's used that. It was 102 pages, the inspection report. So big that they gave me a summary of the inspection report. And I don't use them at all. So, but anyway, so if you can get the inspection report, I think it helps because it's just that, but you have to disclose it. You have to let them know, yes, I had an inspection report. Even if they didn't give it to you, you can say, yes, there was an inspection, but they didn't give me a copy, so I don't know. All right. And then it shows the date of the inspection, the author, number of pages. But if we don't have it, we can't answer that. But if we do have it, that's what you want to put on there. Smoke detectors, you got to have the smoke detectors on there. Next page. Major improvements or major repairs or improvements you want to put on there. You got to put on there what it is. And they're talking about $500 or more. So, I mean, if whatever, if you added a room and that's over $500, you want to be sure to let them know that. If you put a lean-to out there that costs you $300, you don't have to talk about that. And are you aware of major repairs made by previous owners? All right. if you're aware of it, tell them, hey, yeah, I know he did this, all right, or whatever. So, and there it is, insurance claims within the last 5 years. Have you filed a claim on this property? And if there was a monetary settlement, where the funds used to make the repair, section we talked about. Government, other pending received. Seller has not received any notices, either written or oral, regarding the need for repair. Okay, so they haven't received anything saying the house is condemned. All right. And so that's what that's for. And then it goes again, additional disclosure forms attached. And then it's like the addendum for seller disclosure, environmental assessment, energy audit. In Austin, if you sell a condo, there has to be an energy audit, which is an extra, I think, 300 and something bucks. In Williamson County, you don't need to if you sell it, if you sell a condo, but in Austin you do. And then it's a signature there. All right. And then if you look at the next page, page 9 of 9, and it says, the undersigned buyer hereby acknowledges receipt of a copy of this statement. Okay. So you get this signed by the buyer. If you have, okay. Let me go back and let me read the last page 8. Here's the bold. The above disclosures are true and correct to the best knowledge of the seller. Seller acknowledges that the statements in this disclosure are true to the best of the seller's belief, and that no person, including the broker and their agent, has instructed or influenced the seller to provide inaccurate information or omit any material information. Okay, so if worse comes to worse and something happens, you don't want them to be able to say, yeah, Rich helped me fill out this form. Because then they're going to say, oh, all right. So sounds like Rich has some liability here. All right. So that's what we got there. Any questions about anything I covered?
Rich, I have a question.
Yes.
Well, I'm kind of curious from a timing standpoint. How long does it usually take you to go through the during listing presentation, specifically the exclusive right to sell and the sell, and just talking about the seller's disclosure?
I spent let's see, an hour and 50 minutes talking to y'all. I probably say about an hour and a half.
An hour and a half with a
I pretty much go through with the sellers with the exclusive right to sell. I usually go through and explain everything just like I did with y'all.
Okay.
And because I want them to understand it, and I think I said this in the beginning. If I didn't, make sure you read and understand everything that is in the seller's disclosure. I'll tell you, probably the first 2 listings I didn't read it over. I knew what had to be filled in, and I knew that part of it, and I had a pretty good understanding of what it was. But you don't want to be caught when somebody asks you, hey, what's this section mean? You want to be able to know what it is. It just gives you more credibility, and it gives them more confidence that you know what you're doing. If you have to say that's all you need. As soon as you do that, they go, oh man, I don't know about this guy. All right. So know what everything that's on there, and read everything. I mean, even like the contracts, the 1 to 4. I mean, I can't stress enough that you read and understand each one, because they will ask you a question, especially the engineers. They will ask you a question and stuff. So you got it. All righty. Any other questions? All right, guys.
Hi, Rich. We have a question.
Yes.
Okay. On the seller's disclosure notice, where is the line between answering questions that the buyer might have or the seller might have and helping them fill out the form? Because it's like I want to know the middle ground between, if they ask about a section, where do you cross that line of, oh, Rich helped me fill out the form?
Yeah. That is like what is reasonable, and it's going to depend on 12 people in the jury what's reasonable. And that's just an example. I mean, I'm not saying that everything goes to court, but I'm saying you don't want to actually have you can explain the question, but don't give them the answer. Okay, so if they ask, well, what is this bathroom heater? Looking at the first page, what is this bathroom heater? And so you say, well, do you have a bathroom heater? Well, no, I don't. Okay, then you don't, right? Then that's your answer. Okay, what is the central air conditioning? Is the central air conditioning working? Well, what do you mean working? Well, is it working? You don't want to answer. You don't want to answer the questions. You can explain what they're asking, but don't give them the answer. Don't allude to an answer. Let them figure it out. So I don't even go through. I kind of explain. Just here's all these questions. Read them and tell them. And I don't go through line by line on the seller's disclosure. I said, just go ahead and fill this out. And then if you have any questions after you fill it out, then let me know. And then they'll come up and they say, well, I got a question about this. And then when they ask me the question, I said, well, here's what the question is asking. And then if they say, well, I don't know, then put on there, I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
it sounds like you effectively pretend you're a teacher in school giving a test. You can't.
Yes, exactly. So, all righty. Well, guess what? It's high noon. So if anybody didn't have any other questions, listen, folks, I hope I didn't bore you too much. I think Beth is going to give you a what is it called? To rate me as far as an instructor. Be kind, even if you have to fudge a little. It's not like a seller's disclosure. You can go ahead and fudge all you want, as long as it's on the good side. All right. Okay, folks. I hope I think you're all welcome. Anytime you need to get a hold of me, I'm just go into. You get my number. I'm over at the Round Rock office. I'll be glad to go through anything with you and help you with anything, as everybody else in this I Feel Great organization will. Okay, folks. Talk to you all later.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Rich.